We're going to go ahead and start on my right, so we'll go ahead and start with Bob Kovacs.
Here in Cherokee County since 2007. During that time, I've been very actively involved in the community, working volunteering at other school PTAs, fostering 20 dogs, ranging among pet rescue, served on a number of different boards and committees. And to me, being your next county commissioner is truly taking that level of service to the community to the next level. One of the biggest things that the board of commissioners do is oversee the budget here in the county, which is roughly a little over $200 million. I feel I'm uniquely qualified in that respect because what I do for a living is manage about $300 million worth of construction budgets every year. My job is to make sure that my clients' needs and wants are given to them at the least possible cost, that they're getting the best value for every dollar they spend. And I can take that experience and apply it to the county budget as well. Additionally, I spent time on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Holly Springs, so I understand the challenges that we face with regard to traffic, with regard to the general growth that we have here, infrastructure, schools, and so on. And I can utilize that experience as a commissioner to help develop a comprehensive plan to address those issues. So in general, I'll represent you with the utmost integrity and honesty. I'll be open and accountable at all times, and I look forward to serving you as your next commissioner, and humbly ask for your vote on May 24th.
Presley?
Hello, my name is Presley White. Looks like there's a lot of familiar faces out there from some previous debates. I moved to Cherokee County when I was just 9 years old. I've gone through the public school system. I played at our recreational parks, SCRA, Hobgood Park. I grew up here. As soon as I turned 21, I joined the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, where I've been for the previous 10 years. During that time, within the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a massive turnover of nearly 50%. One of the reasons I'm wanting to run for this position is to try to help out my fellow deputies, get the help that we need, and to assist the county commissioners doing what we need to do. Another thing that I'm very interested in, and Bob mentioned it, is the budget. We need to open up the books. We need to reevaluate our budgeting system. I'm proposing priority budgeting. We need to see where the gross spending is, and we need to better allocate our funds to whatever services are actually working towards the ones that are working. There's so much gross spending right now within our budgeting system that we have, and we just can't handle continuing with what we have. But my name is Presley White, and I want to be your county commissioner.
Jack?
Good evening. My name is Jack Staver. I'm a 23-year resident of Cherokee County. I've lived here, I've raised my children here, my grandchildren are here, I've had schools here with my kids. Cherokee County is a great place to live, work, and play. But there is room for improvement. And right now I see some very drastic areas that need to be addressed in the county. And there's no reason that we can't, as commissioners, be servants, because that's what we're supposed to be. It's about we, the people. It's about you, everybody here. If I can't hear from you, I don't know what happens. Going door to door lately, talking to people, the biggest thing I hear from people, and there's been a lot of people, is communication. There's no communication to the people from this. You're good. Keep going. Oh. Like that was really lost my train of thought there for a second. I'm sorry. I've got 39 years experience in the high-tech construction industry. I have worked on small projects to large projects. I have been in situations where life and death situations have arisen, and cool heads have prevailed, and people are still alive today because of that. I know how to work with the budget. I've worked my projects. The largest one I've had is about almost $3 billion when I worked for Intel Corporation. I've had 1,000 people work for me. It's just the way you do business. It's what you do. And being a servant, we have to serve the people. And right now, I just don't see a lot of that going on in the county. I want to be able to be a representative, be a voice. I'm one of 4 voices, but I want to be your voice. And I want to be able to make improvements in our county. And I'm not making anybody any promises, but I tell you what, there's a lot of things that we really need to try to do to improve the quality of life here. And I want to give that an opportunity. So I ask for your vote on May 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll start our questioning with Bill Parrish.
Thanks, Ray. I'm going to start with just a general overall question, and gentlemen. Question basically is, what is your view of the role of government at the county level? Is government's top priority to provide services and amenities that make an area attractive to live in, or is it to stay out of people's way and their pocketbooks as much as possible?
And we'll start on the left here with Jack.
Well, government's role is to be smaller and out of the way in the first place. That's what it should be. This is where our country is in the situation it is right now overall, on a federal level, a state level, and on a county level. And it starts locally, it starts on a county level. And we need to provide the goods and services that we are required to provide. If people want special things, that's what we have. As much as people don't like them, and I'm not a friend of them, but as a SPLOST, if everybody in the county votes that they want something and they want to pay for it, that's fine. But there isn't a bucket of money sitting around here. The government doesn't have a bucket of money. We are the government. So we don't have extra money laying around to fund projects and to basically, wants, because I really want this. I want a new car, but I can't afford that right now, so I don't think I should try to go spend the money and put myself in debt to do it. And I believe it should be the same thing in the county.
All right, Presley?
I think it's a combination of both things. I think it's important that we provide those services without having to throw extra taxes on people. I think we need to be conservative on our spending. I think that we need to be conservative on our land use. I know that's been a big problem in numerous areas right now, Woodstock considering Costco, Hickory Flat turning down some issues. We need to be conservative. We need to work with the cities and the people, because ultimately they're the ones that elect us. We need to get their viewpoints before we actually act. So and basically we're speaking for them, but I definitely approve of acting conservatively throughout the government across the board.
I agree. I think it's a combination of both. I mean, there are certain things that the government's going to be able to provide more cost effectively and more efficiently than people can provide for themselves. For example, to have a fire department, it would be kind of unusual, difficult for people to provide their own fire service. So that's something that the government, in my mind, should be providing. But they should be doing it at the lowest cost possible as well. Beyond that, beyond the essential services, it becomes a matter of what the people want. So we should be asking what people want, and we should be providing those services in a cost-effective manner. And as mentioned before, one of the best ways to do that is to put it to the public referendum with regard to parks or with regard to highway expansions or whatever. Let the people decide whether we should or shouldn't be spending money on these types of projects.
Thank you. Eric, your question?
Okay, you touched on a lot of issues that I want to ask you questions about. All three of you kind of said, okay, we want to be fiscal conservatives, but oftentimes we have had Republican commissioners for several decades here, but we keep getting these splots. So do any of you support or you're in favor of any local option sales tax, such as e-spots, during your term as commissioner? So please let us know what you think about splots, and do you see anything specifically that might cause you to want to have one of those coming up in the future?
We'll start this one with Presley.
Unfortunately, I do see a potential for splots. I'm all for setting up a vote. If the people are for it, then I'm for it. If they're against it, the people have spoken. However, I definitely, coming from the jail, sheriff's office, which is overcrowded. Currently, I believe, as of last week, there were 650, 660 something inmates in a 580 capacity jail. That number is just going to balloon worse when the population nearly going to double within the next 15 years. And it's just not feasible to be able to just keep pounding, putting more inmates in there and stacking them so high. So unfortunately, as much as I don't like the idea, I think a SPLOST will probably eventually be necessary to kind of come up with a solution for the jail overcrowding, overpopulation.
Bob?
I agree that there are going to be reasons that we're going to have SPLOST, unfortunately, education being one of them right now, especially with the state underfunding the schools as much as they have. I don't know how we could possibly provide the quality education that we have right now here in the county and continue to do that, especially as we grow without SPLOST. But again, the people are going to decide that by voting on it and either approving it or disapproving. If they really want the schools to continue, I don't know that they've got a choice but to approve it. A couple of years back, there was a transportation SPLOST. That's one that, especially the way it was structured, did not make any sense because we didn't have enough control over how that money would have been spent. So that definitely was something that should not have passed. But at the same time, like Jack said, going door to door, you hear all kinds of stuff. And one of the things that I hear repeatedly in the past month is, what are we going to do about all this traffic? And if anybody thinks that lane down the middle of 575 is going to solve all of our traffic woes, going to be sorely disappointed in about a year when it opens up. So we have to address the traffic issues around here. I would love to say that we could do it within the current budget, but I don't think that's a viable option without dramatic cuts someplace else. So it may be that we have to put together a local list of projects and say, here's the 10 things that we want to do, and put it out to the people and say, look, you talk about the traffic, you want to help address it, here's an option, and let them decide if they think that's an appropriate response.
Jack?
I was a part of the Comprehensive Transportation Planning Board for Cherokee County last time. We met for about a year, and we have a whole book of projects right now. They were waiting for funding. The funding is there for a lot of the projects. They're on the books right now. It's hard to put in perspective, though, the SPLOST portion of it, because it depends on what kind of SPLOST it is. Is it an imposed SPLOST by the state, like T-SPLOST? T-SPLOST was imposed by the state, and we were going to be the recipients of whatever they said that it was. That's why it was a ballot referendum. Local SPLOSTs are different. Again, that comes up before the public to do it, but those wouldn't be a transportation SPLOST locally. That wouldn't happen. We have money in the budget for that. It's allocated. There's already projects on the books. Schools, do we really need to build? I know we have overcrowding in schools, and it's really interesting to hear that one of the solutions they had is they added a gymnasium in one of the schools. What does that do? So we're going to pay for eSPLOST, we're going to build gymnasiums, but how does that take care of the overcrowding in the schools? It doesn't fix it. And the same thing with the jail. Who is in the jail? Why are they in there? So do we need to build a new jail, or do we need to look at who's in there? Is it white collar crime? Is it guys who got busted for a joint and they're in jail? And they just leave them in there? We don't have a place to put people for illegals with ICE, because ICE drops them off and they leave them with us, and we can't house them. So if there are immigration issues, which would go back to the size of the jail again, it just depends on what it is. And what's the real needs versus what's the wants.
All right, next question, Bill.
Sticking with the budget, question for each of you. Have you actually looked at the budget lately, the county's budget? They can only answer that based on the comments, but if so, where do you see problems in the budget? And what's your assessment of the county's overall financial position? In addition to that, where do you see the biggest threats to the county's financial stability?
And we'll start this one, Bob.
I have looked through the budget. It's 600 and some odd pages. Challenge with reading that budget is it only goes down so deep. So you look at a particular department and you'll see the large the summary level information as to where the money's being spent, but you don't see the granular detail to figure out exactly whether the numbers make sense per se. And one of the things that I would want to do is dig into that deeper to be able to address issues that might be out there. I don't know that anybody could really look at that budget and say, that's a department that definitely needs to be cut or has some fat in it, because you don't have that level of information. I can tell you that I'm certain there's plenty of opportunities to reduce the budget, but without being able to get into it, at that level, which I don't know that you can really do without having deeper access. I don't know yet what the solution is.
All right, Jack?
Well, we've got to remember one thing is a budget is a budget. You have to look at the CAFR. The CAFR is the checkbook. That's what you have to look at. It's how much money is really in the bank. I believe Cherokee County is financially stable right now, and we do have property that we could sell off to increase that. A budget's a budget, like any job or anything else. It's something that can be cut and molded, shaped. What departments are we wasting? What things are being wasted? Is there wasteful spending? Has anybody really looked at that? Again, like Bob said, though, it goes down so far. They claim transparency, but you have to go layer by layer by layer to dig down and finally get it. By that time, most people give up because it's too hard to find. We need to be open and more transparent with what the budget is. And again, the budget is a want. It's not necessarily a need. And we have to determine what that is. And I believe it's part of the commissioner's roles who oversee the budget to see, do we really have to have this? Do we really need to buy more land? No.
Presley?
I think we all up here agree that we can see the title of the book, but we actually need to open up the book to get a better understanding of where our money's being spent and how it's being spent. One of the reasons I'm a big proponent of priority budgeting is it allows us to be able to easily do that. Cobb County has just implemented that within the last 2 years, and I spoke with Bob Weatherford, a Cobb County Commissioner, recently. He says, it's great, however, the department heads of the particular departments hate it because they actually have to describe what their function is and try to convince them why they need the funding that they're getting. At the end of it, every fiscal year, it doesn't matter what county department you're in, there's always a mad rush to spend money. I know this from the sheriff's office, and I know it applies to every other department. At the end of the year, they spend the money to try to make it so where they say they need this money, so obviously they need to be budgeted. I think that's wrong. I think we need to change our budgeting system, and I think I'll have the right idea to encourage the other commissioners in that.
Bob? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Bob.
I can go again.
No, sorry, that was the last one. I'm keeping score over here, sorry, I just was going to take mark. Okay. I've got a question that was submitted. Over 10 years ago, East Cherokee at Old Highway 5 in Woodstock was custom designed into a 2-lane bottleneck, tonight backing up approximately 1 mile. How will you and when will you fix this DOT engineered bottleneck? And we'll go ahead and start with Presley.
I need to find out more information about that. Obviously, I need to see what we have in the budget that would make it applicable to actually put our resources towards that, and how much that would do to actually fix the problem. Because I'm currently unsure. I'm familiar with the situation, unfamiliar with the solution as far as how much it's actually going to cost the taxpayers to fix it.
All right. Bob?
Yeah, I live right down the street from that intersection, so I know it very well. One of the things I think we could do is look at, right now you've got the 1 lane coming toward the intersection on East Cherokee, and I believe it's 1 lane that turns left and 1 lane that's a straight and a right, and there's a vacant piece of property adjacent to it that would be very easy to add a third right turn only lane, which would allow some of the traffic to be alleviated, because right now if there's 1 car sitting at that light waiting to go straight across into Publix, the other 300 cars behind him wait until that light turns until he's able to get across the road. So it'd be a matter of sitting down with our county planning and roads departments and the state to figure out the right solution. I think that would probably be one of the most cost-effective solutions, just make that easy right turn lane.
All right. Jack?
I believe that's already a project on the books right now, and where it falls in the priority of the projects, I couldn't tell you that. I don't have it in front of me because there's a stack of them about that big of the projects. That's a bad intersection. Part of the thing, what it says in the mission statement for the commissioners is to accelerate infrastructure projects. It says that as a mission statement. I don't see that going on around here. And the key areas like that, which have been identified to the transportation plan, has been, they're there. And why don't we accelerate them? Why don't we do that? If it's part of our charter, we should do that. We need to push forward to do that. If it's in our purview, why not?
Okay, next question. Are you in favor of modifying the comprehensive land use plan? Why or why not? And we'll start this one with Bob.
I believe there's a need for us to review the comprehensive land use plan, and more importantly, not just review it, but also try to incorporate some of the things that the county and the city are trying to do that are different right now between their land use plans. Because one of the biggest challenges we face right now is out there in Hickory Flat, where Holly Springs keeps wanting to expand. And what they're looking for as far as different zoning classifications is entirely different than what the county wants. And the county, unfortunately can't really do a whole lot about it because, the annexation rules, unless there's a legitimate reason, they can't just say, no, we're not going to allow you to annex this without spending a whole lot of money and going to court and losing anyway. I think one of the biggest issues that we've had with regard to that whole area is the county and the city not being willing or able to sit down and come up with a comprehensive solution that works for everybody. So yes, the comprehensive land use plan needs to be looked at, especially in areas like that. I'm sure there's other areas as well, but it doesn't make any sense for the county to sit down and do that in a vacuum without having Holly Springs and Woodstock and Canton and everybody across the table so that it comes up with one plan that works for everybody. It's not happening right now. Everybody's just doing whatever is best for them, and in the end, who gets stuck with the inadequate roads, all the traffic and so on? We do.
Jack?
The comprehensive I'm talking about transportation because it's part of it. The land use plan is up right now. Next year is the 10 years. It's reviewed every 10 years, and there's a panel that's put together of different citizens that come and review this, all different groups. There's different types of citizen groups that get involved with this to see what it is and how this stuff is zoned, what it's zoned. Is it zoned for green space? Is it zoned for commercial? Whatever the use is now. Right now, we have a 10-year-old plan that's there. So it's in the works. It'll happen next year. So yes, it does have to be reviewed. And does it need to be looked at realistically? Yes, absolutely.
Presley?
It definitely needs to be reevaluated. it's actually really imperative that we're able to work with the surrounding cities and the citizens of Cherokee County. That's proven to be extremely difficult right now, but it's absolutely vital that we're able to do that, come to some sort of compromise that will allow us all to work together to better this county as a whole. I definitely believe in conservative land use. I definitely see us doubling the population within the next 15 years. The growth is coming. However, we need to be smart and make sure that there's proper infrastructure to allow this. The roadways, the streets don't need to be jammed up. People don't want to knock on each other's neighbor's window. We need to make sure everything kind of makes sense without everyone having to feel like they live in a sardine can by putting up houses and commercial properties everywhere.
Okay. And last question from this side. Have any of your funds been raised from people or entities that you may potentially have to work with, address, or decide upon laws and regulations for? And we'll go ahead and start this one with Presley.
Not that I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have received contributions from some of the companies that I've worked with in the past that are supporting me. And if if it became an issue, I would recuse myself from whatever issue that could possibly be a conflict of interest.
All right. Jack?
No.
That was a quick answer. Okay. We'll go ahead and toss back over to, we'll start with Eric this time.
What qualifications do you think you have that make you more qualified than the other candidate to be county commissioner for this district?
All right, and we'll go ahead and start with Bob.
As I mentioned in the opening statement, the biggest thing to me is the budget. It's what I do all day long, every day. It's figuring out more cost-effective ways to provide my clients with what they want. I've been doing it for years, and the concept is the same whether we're talking about a construction project or we're talking about a department that needs funding for whatever it is that they do. So the principles are the same, and it starts with rolling up your sleeves, figuring out what the actual needs are versus what the wants are, putting them in two different buckets, applying funds to them accordingly, and making sure we're getting the best value from our client, for every dollar of taxpayer funds that gets spent. So that's probably the biggest thing that I bring to the table that I don't think anybody else has done recently, especially.
Jack?
I have been engaged with the public since 2009. Went to Washington, D.C. to fight Obamacare and various other atrocities that have been imposed upon us. I have led groups around the state. I led a statewide organization that stopped the T-Splosh in 9 out of 12 regions. I've walked the streets. I've talked to people. I traveled the state to do this because I believe in we the people. I don't believe in we the government. I believe in we the people. And I believe without people having a voice and being able to address issues and take care of them and communicate, nothing's ever going to happen. I believe that we, the people, have complete ultimate control in this. And we, as a commissioner, are a public servant for you and to listen to you and talk to you. This hasn't happened since I've lived here, I haven't seen it. I think that when we talk to people, we really pay attention to what they're saying and what they're doing, and you can determine what's needs and what's wants, and you can let them listen and let them see. I also believe that when we have people who really have legitimate concerns, that we need to talk to them and explain to them, is it a county issue? Is it a state issue? Is it a federal issue? If it's not a county issue, everybody says it's a state issue. It's not our problem. No, we need to help our constituents. Where do they go for the next level? Who do they go talk to? What do they do? If it's not a state issue, it's a federal issue, who do you go to and what do you do? We leave everybody out in the dark, and as public servants, I believe it's our responsibility to help, and really it's almost in a counseling type role to explain to people what you need to do, who you need to talk to, what's the real issue? Is it really an issue or is it something you think is a problem? So I believe I'm uniquely qualified in that because I've been doing it for a long time.
Presley?
I'm completely for we the people because I consider myself one of them. I'm the only one up here that's grown up in the county, the only one that's gone through the public school system in the county, the only one that's worked public safety in the county. My educational background is in industrial engineering, which is helping improve efficiencies in businesses. I feel like I've got a lot to offer. My age, I'm a little bit younger than some of these other guys, so they have some years on me. But I think what I lack in some experience, I'll make up in passion for my county that I feel very vested in.
All right. Bill?
It's kind of a two-part question. Recently, the Board of Commissioners passed the new sign ordinance. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. But, and that's an example of the question I'm about to ask. If you find yourself in a situation where 50 citizens, or a majority of people, support an issue, but that issue infringes on one person's constitutional property rights, how would you vote on that issue? And secondly, it brings up the question, should county commissioners, in your view, should county commissioners write and adopt specific policies, or should the details of policies be crafted and implemented by boards or commissions or outside specialists who have more in-depth knowledge about their subject area?
Let's start with Jack.
Well, the first part of that bill would be for the signs, for the sign ordinance. I was here for all the meetings for that. I was intimately involved in the whole thing with the signs. I don't believe it's the county commissions or the states or the federal or anybody else. When you have your property and if you have a potential of having anywhere between 25 and 35 different candidates running at one time between the state, with the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, you have state senators, you have house reps, you have all these, you could have that many people running. Whose signs don't you put in the yard? We limit it to 15 signs. So who do we infringe upon to do that? And it's up to the marshal to enforce it, if that's, because that's the way the ordinance is written. I don't believe it's the planning or the commissioners to do that on private property, on your property. If it impinges in public properties blocking a right-of-way or view, absolutely, because the safety comes in at that point. But otherwise, no, I don't think it's anywhere in their purview to do that. And the second part of the question, can you repeat the second, please?
It's basically, do you believe the county commissioners should write specific policy, or should they farm that out to commissions or experts to come up with the policy based on their recommendations?
If they have the knowledge on how to write it, I've written legislation. I know how to do this stuff. Yes, if they have the knowledge to do it, yes, and they do the research. But if they don't, willy-nilly, we do lots of willy-nilly stuff around here. We just go ahead and get it, do it because it makes everybody feel good, and that's not the way it should be done. If we have to get somebody outside as an outside consultant that's familiar with the language, because OCGA is huge, and there's lots of little loopholes in OCGA that you have to follow. Are they right or wrong? I won't say that because it depends on what it is. But no, if we needed to get somebody on the outside, if we couldn't handle it, yes.
Presley.
Well, I think the first question wasn't necessarily about the signs. It was the right about 50 people against stomping on someone's constitutional right. To answer that, I would not. I'm not going to stomp on anyone's constitutional rights. They're constitutional rights for a reason. As far as the second question, I would have to basically talk with everyone, all the experts about that, and depending on what certain projects it is, you may have a certain different outcome. So it's hard to actually pinpoint a black and white circumstance when everything's kind of in a gray area as far as that goes.
Yeah, with regard to personal property rights, without a doubt, nobody should have their personal property rights impinged upon. The only thing I would say with regard to that is when you exercising your personal property rights affects me negatively. For example, you decide you want to pile 6 years of trash on your property because it's your right to do so, and that stink is affecting my ability to enjoy my property, that's a problem. That's something that needs to be addressed. With regard to the need for outside specialty consultants, without a doubt, I will readily admit that there are people on a lot of issues that are far smarter than me, and I would be more than willing to take their advice as opposed to 4 folks sitting up here who may or may not have experience in the particular thing at hand. Definitely, it makes sense to have outside consultants.
Eric, your next question.
Our growth rate is pretty slow nationally, but as we know, it's what happens locally that builds our economy. So what do you think you could do to help bring businesses here to Cherokee County for them to grow?
All right, we're going to start with Presley on this one.
I definitely think that we need to be more proactive rather than reactive towards these new businesses. Right now, we kind of just sit back when we have a lot to offer. We have an effective land use plan. We have a great airport that we can go and they can. I just think that there's a lot of stuff that we can do to actually market ourselves better than what we're doing currently. Currently, we're doing hardly anything to actually market outside of the county to bring in new businesses and industry within Cherokee County.
Bob?
We need to expand the types of businesses that we're looking at and actively courting. I think a lot of times we tend to rest on our laurels a bit based on job creation numbers. For example, the outlet mall down there at Exit 9, that came in and it generated hundreds of jobs. and everybody got all excited. We brought 300 jobs to the county. The majority of them are $10, $12 an hour retail jobs. That's great for the teenagers and some of the folks that are just getting started. We need to be starting to look more at white-collar professional projects or jobs, because one of the things everybody complains about, again, is traffic. Well, that's because 75% of the people every day leave the county to go to work. So, I mean, the perfect example is the building we're sitting in. It's in the middle of 700 acres that's designated to be, a technology park. There was a study that came out today, or a rating system that ranked us above the national average. We're one of 5 counties in the entire state of Georgia that are over 100% rating on our technology and innovation. And a lot of that's because we've got an educated workforce. We've got almost 40% of our population has a bachelor's degree or higher. We've got some great programs in the schools, and we've got the colleges here in town that can provide people that these companies need. So we need to be courting the right kind of companies to the right areas to grow the commercial side of our tax base. That's one of the things that hurts us right now, is we're so slanted residentially, and residential consumes 150% or $1.50 for every dollar that it generates. Commercial consumes between 20 cents and 60 cents. So we need to get more commercial tax base here in the county.
So how would you do that?
You start working with the Chamber of Commerce and the Department of Economic Development, and targeting key industries and key corporations that fit the profile of what we need.
Jack?
Well, it's a multifaceted question, really, because the land use planning, zoning, those guys, they've turned down a lot of business here before. Toyo Tire was coming here in Cherokee County, said, no, we don't want them. There was 2 other industries a few years back that they said, no, we didn't want that kind of industry here. For the life of me, I don't know why. We have lots of property. We have opportunity zones in Cherokee County. We need to invite people and bring people in. They don't want to come here because if they look at the past record, they find out that we're not being business friendly. We have lots of entrepreneurial people that want to open business here, but we make it very cumbersome for somebody to try to open a business. Permitting, licensing, I know when I opened my business, they're very nice people, but they're not user-friendly. So you can't go in there and get your information. I would have spent twice as much money going through the county as I did forming an LLC to start my corporation. Well, why would you want to come here if it's difficult to get in and try to find out what to do? People don't want to do that. So again, it's not about the people and people being nice people. It's about, do we have the right people in the right positions to help people, to want them to open a business here to do that? Is economic development pushing that? Are they really out diligently seeking companies to come in here to try to do that? I don't know that.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question, then you guys also, if you want to prepare for, I'm sorry, Presley, did you answer this?
I did.
Okay, we're good. It's easy answer. I'm going to ask one last question, and then I'm going to ask you guys to ask your last question, and then we'll get into our final statement. So, given that the county commissioner's role is not a full-time role, are you currently employed elsewhere? And if so, is your current employer aware of your bid for the county commissioner, and are they in support of your bid for county commissioner? And we'll start with Bob.
I am currently employed. I work for a company called Skansky USA building down in downtown Atlanta. They are fully aware of my bid. My boss and my boss's boss both are fully supportive. In fact, they've encouraged me to do it, and they've offered to give me whatever time I need to fulfill the duties accordingly. I work from home quite a bit. I have a very flexible schedule. I've got 12 people that work under me that do the day-to-day stuff. So doing what I have to do up here as a county commissioner is not an issue.
Jack?
I work for myself, so yes, my boss will let me do it.
I thought you had a different boss. Presley?
I'm currently employed by the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. Roger Garrison graciously allowed me to take a leave of absence while I run my campaign. If I was hypothetically to win, I would leave the Sheriff's Office, a conflict of interest, and I've got other options backed up as far as moving on, I guess.
Okay. Eric, your last question, please.
Back to the economic issues. Would citizens get more effective services at a better rate if more functions of the county were accomplished by contracting with private providers? And do you see any particular areas that we might look at doing that?
All right, we'll start with Jack.
Without doing a real research here on specific departments, I couldn't say that. I usually say that you could, though, because most businesses, you can get a better contract rate and a more efficient rate, and and have people that if you need, 20 people for 2 weeks, you get them and then they go away when you're done. So you don't need to hire 20 people and have 20 employees to do something that's a short-term project to do it. I think there's a lot of things that we could probably do. I do know that a lot of the outside consultants, the swimming pool is a good example. When they built the pool, we offered to help the county look at the drawings and review everything for free to do it. There's a lot of folks around here that are willing to do that to help the county out, but they're not willing to budge too much on that. We did it, and then after about 2 weeks, they said, we don't want you anymore because we kept finding issues that could have been corrected, but they didn't want to take their hands off it.
Presley?
I'm for cost savings. I think it benefits everyone, the citizens, the Cherokee County as a whole. I'm actually for it. I don't see anything wrong with it. There are a couple things that are more on the fence as far as being maybe unbalanced, as far as, I know we've all talked about it before, the county attorney being contracted out. I'm opposed for that. I feel like they personally should be vested in living inside the county and should be on the payroll rather than being contracted out and having to be on call for every time select groups want to bring lawsuits towards the county.
Bob?
We want to provide the best value, which is not always necessarily the lowest price. So in a lot of cases it is, and I'd say the majority of the cases it is, but we want to make sure that we're giving the citizens the best service, as opposed to just, hey, these guys are really cheap. The county attorney is a perfect example, as Presley mentioned. I mean, everybody's up in arms about the cost of the county attorney. They say they want them to be in-house. And we were asked at one of the forums a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of the responses were very simple, yes. Well, without actually analyzing and finding out what it would cost to have an in-house counsel, or versus what it costs to have out-of-house counsel, it's kind of hard to say yes or no. And I think that's a lot of why people get disappointed sometimes with elected officials, because they get a yes answer, and then when the elected official gets the actual information, that's not the right answer. So I think it's really a case-by-case basis, and you got to study it and figure out what the best avenue is. Yes, in the perfect case, you've got an in-house counsel who is vested as an employee, who lives in the county, comes here every day, is readily accessible, as opposed to somebody coming in from Forsyth County. But if that's not going to give us the best service or the best chance of winning a case, it may be a combination of both. Maybe we have in-house for certain aspects of a particular department, and we go out-of-house for specialties, like we were talking before about specialty consultants for legislation. It may be that we do the same thing with some of these departments. So yes, I believe when it makes sense, we should absolutely look at outside contracts, but it's got to be addressed case by case.
Bill, your last question?
For my last question, I'm going to open his closet and take out this dusty skeleton. Okay, so it may not be real pleasant. But y'all may be familiar with the Resource Recovery Development Authority of Cherokee County. Everybody? That department was put together to install and create a waste disposal and recycling facility for the county, and $18 million in bond funds were put out for that facility. They were supposed to collect and recycle natural materials such as leaves, trees, and debris. If the county felt it was so important that we have one of these recycling facilities, I questioned then why, when the company that was running it went out of business, they didn't continue to provide that service and make some type of revenue off that facility instead of just paying a huge, multi-million-dollar mortgage every year. So my question is, in hindsight, since we had the advantage of that, what would you have done different about that whole situation or a similar situation? Because basically this is a public-private partnership, okay? And if it was to provide this service, that's great, it's important to the county. If it was only to generate revenue based on the rents received, that's a different issue. So, what would you have done, and what should we learn from that experience so it doesn't happen again?
Let's start with Presley.
Well, first of all, I think subsidizing a private business is just going to lead to turmoil anyway. I don't know who thought it would be a grand idea to think that stump grinding would be a great endeavor. That just blows my mind. I really don't know what else I can say about that other than it was idiotic.
Bob?
The thing that struck me about the whole resource recycling deal was the fact that the operator had absolutely zero skin in the game. I mean, we put $18 million in, he put in zero. I've been involved in many, business deals, whether they be all private, all public, public-private, and so on. And I've yet to ever see another case where 100% of the cost burden and risk was assumed by one side of that equation, and essentially 100% of the potential gain was on the other side. So don't know who put the deal together, but I can guarantee you that a deal like that would never happen under my watch. Because without skinning the game, it was easy for him to walk away and say, "Hey, you guys have got all the risk, and I'm scot-free."
Jack?
Public-private partnerships are not always a good thing. This is a great example of not a good thing. The way the whole deal was set up, it was structured, a lot of it was done behind closed doors. And there was a lot of backroom dealing with this thing. Tipping fees were never collected when they were doing the dumping. A lot of disposal fees didn't happen. And who was tracking this? Who was taking care of it? We signed an agreement with the guy and let them have it and say, "Here you go, have fun." And they took our money and ran. But again, like Bob said, no skin in the game whatsoever. Why would we do this? That's up to the commissioners to have really stopped that. But you also have to have a knowledge of the job of what you're doing to be able to stop that. You can't stop something if you don't know what it is. And for these guys to just let it go and how it got through, there's a huge history of this thing. I mean, there's a book about this thick of the whole thing right there. So it's been going on for years. It's done, all the damage was done. Unfortunately now we're just paying it's about $19 million we're paying back every month, and it's not recoverable for us at all. I mean, all we can do is hope to sell some property off to offset the cost, but is it a good thing to do ever? No, I don't think so. I mean, we're not, why should we be in that business? Are we in the recycling business? Are we gonna sell mulch, bags of mulch to people? I don't think so. I don't think that's the county's job.
Okay, that was our final question. We're going to ask each of our candidates to give their 2-minute closing statement, and we'll start this time on my left, so we'll start with Jack and work our way to the right.
Well, I'm really passionate about what I do, and I have been for years. And this is a passion that this is home, and I like my home. I love living here. I love my friends. I love my neighbors. I love all the relationships I've built over the years. And I want to be able to finally give back to the community. And this is one way for me really to be able to do it. And I really feel I can be a very valuable asset with my not only work experience, but my relationships and knowing people, knowing the area, and what to do and how to do it. I have a wonderful wife here, and I have 2 sons, and actually I have 4 children between my wife and myself and grandsons. I don't want them to have a better place to live. And this is one way to do it, is to serve. It's just how to. If we're not going to be a servant and just sit back and complain, which most people do, I don't know what else to say. It's time to step up and put yourself out there and really commit 100% of yourself to do this. And I'm ready and willing to do that right now.
Presley?
I'm not a politician. I'm a deputy sheriff. I feel obligated to do whatever I can to help the county. I see the county has some issues. There's budgeting issues. There's understaffed and overworked law enforcement officers. We need to be able to do what we can to listen to the people, make ourselves accessible, and I think everyone up here would agree with that. We need to be accessible to the people, not lock doors and not, after this election's over, and no longer listen to people. We need to be accessible to everyone, take everyone's consideration, and just be available to everyone, all the citizens of Cherokee County. I never anticipated running for this office, but just seeing so many problems, I feel like I can really add a lot to this. We need more deputies on the streets. Holly Springs has had 2 gun store robberies here in the last couple of weeks. Those guns are currently on our streets. We need more deputies and more law enforcement. More law enforcement. It's absolutely vital not to stay understaffed and overworked. We need to ensure the safety of this county. I'm Presley White, and I appreciate your vote for May 24th.
Bob?
Like everybody else up on this stage, I am by no stretch of the imagination a politician. When I announced that I was going to run for this office, I had numerous people from my past email me and say, "Are you out of your mind? I mean, you are the most non-political person out there," and it's true. I really to me, this is not about politics. This is about doing the right thing for the community that we live in. Say we came down here 3 years ago, we bought 4 acres over on Tunai Road with a house in the front, with the intention of eventually, hopefully, parceling that up and building houses for our daughters. we had no intention of leaving, and I want to make sure that, we do the best we can, we have the best community we possibly can. And let's face it, we have some issues that need to be addressed that are not being addressed currently. And as somebody else mentioned, I mean, you can sit around and complain about it, or you can actually step up and go do something about it. And I tend to do that. I feel that, that desire combined with, my experience working with different organizations, different groups, bringing things, bring groups together to solve a problem, my experience with budgeting, and just my general desire to do the right thing, make me the best candidate for the position, and I look forward to hopefully earning your vote.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you spending some of your valuable time here with us tonight. Very quickly, before we wrap up, I want to make everybody aware that next week, Wednesday, May 4th, the same place here at the Bluffs in the Cherokee Hall Auditorium, we're going to have our State Senate District 21 debate and our Public Service Commission debate. So I hope that you'll join us for that. Should be pretty interesting. I don't think anybody has done a public service debate here in the county. Many people don't even know what the Public Service Commission does. So we'll hope you'll join us for that. We are not doing our meet and greets on Saturday anymore. We think that's probably a better use of the time for the candidates to get out and meet the public. So we are not going to be doing our meet and greets on Saturdays. And want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much for coming. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great night. Drive safely.
That was the end of it.
Oh, I don't know.